All right, everyone. Thank you for joining. This is going to be a special campfire today. I'm here by myself, but I'm not alone. You're here. I can see you, Tyson. I can see you, Krista, as well. Jesse, the diary of Daniel. So thanks for joining. It's a very special campfire. I don't have a guest because you and we're going to talk about the big revolution that we're experiencing, ChatGPT and AI, and the big question that's in on everyone's mind. I know, how is that going to affect our careers? How is that going to affect wanting to join the tech industry and become a web developer? So we're going to cover all that. We're going to talk about AI first. We're going to go into some of the conversations that are happening on the internet. I'm going to share my view with you, some examples. And in about 30 minutes, we're actually going to run an experiment where you're going to feel what it's like to be a super intelligent AI. And I'm not kidding. It's actually, you're going to feel it. So, about 30 minutes from now, I want to invite all of you to ask your questions on YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook. I can see Terrence is here as well. Just don't hesitate to ask your questions. I'm going to look at the chat here. If you are courageous and you want to join me, you can also do that. So what you can do is follow this link right here, url.nucamp.co/dial-in, and you'll actually take the seat of a guest for a short amount of time. We can have a conversation, mic on, webcam on, and we can talk about your AI if you have a perspective that you want to share, if you have experiences with AI that you want to share. uh, you are very welcome to join me here on this stage. All right, what I'm going to do is I want to kind of set the context of why are we talking about AI now. It feels like machine learning, AI topics have been around for several years now, but for the past few months, it feels like it really has exploded. And so let me bring in this tool here, Google Trends, because I want to show you how big it has become in very much a few months. So if you look at artificial intelligence here as a topic, this is Google Trend. And well, if you look at it for the past day, it's not going to show you anything. But if you look at it for the past 2 years, you're going to notice this big spike in December, precisely December, the week of December 4th to 10th, and continuously going higher. And so, why is that? You may ask. Well, you know why? ChatGPT happened, and there you go. We are now talking about artificial intelligence, ChatGPT, for since December, pretty much, and it has already changed how we think about IT. It's changing how we think about our careers in such a short amount of time. And we've all played with it. I've played with it. Oh, you want to post the link for the link? Yeah. Okay. I'm going to post this link here. Hold on a sec. Let me do that. There we go. You want to join me on this stage and have a chat on ChatGPT? Please follow this link right here. It's also on in the chat window. So it's super fresh. And actually, we've already seen two evolution of ChatGPT. We've had GPT 3.5, which was already very impressive, and then we've had GPT 4, which I think this line here probably is about ChatGPT 4. This spike here. Now, let's think about the differences between the two. And the differences, I want to bring you here to the playground. The main differences that I can see, especially how you can apply those engines to replace jobs if you want, is the notion of having a very strong system prompt. So when you pick GPT-4 or GPT 3.5, You always had that system prompt here, but GPT 3.5 was notorious for pretty much ignoring it. And that system prompt was really meant to give ChatGPT and is meant to give ChatGPT a lot of additional context in terms of what ChatGPT is supposed to be. So when you think about ChatGPT taking over a profession, that's where you will actually indicate which profession it will take over. So ChatGPT 3.5 will be really bad at it. ChatGPT 4 is much better. So let me give you an example. For example, um, let's say that you are a chat agent for Nucamp Coding Bootcamp. That's the system prompt that GPT-4 now knows to follow, and it's really going to be um, it's going to really superimpose on its intelligence the role that it's supposed to play. So now if I ask, what are the boot camps that I can register to? Notice that I'm not indicating anything about Nucamp here. It's going to know. If you were to do that same test with GPT 3.5, chances are it will actually ignore the system prompt. And it will kind of not know exactly what to answer, or it will provide a way too broad answer. That system prompt here, I've been told, is capable of internalizing 5, 7, 30 pages of document, of content. So that means you can really feed ChatGPT a lot of very rich context to really improve that chat agent experience, for example. Uh, and you can do that without having to train the model. If you want, it's kind of a training on the fly. You're training the model on the fly. Now, I want to pause here to just mention a few things as well. Everything I'm going to share with you today is my own research, but it's also listening to a lot of great minds talking about AI, the evolution of AI and ChatGPT. And in particular, I want to point out two YouTube channels that have been very helpful for me. This one I don't think is too well known, although I've noticed the number of subscribers have gone up. It's AI Explained. Notice the URL here. I'm going to paste it. Very, very interesting videos that explains in layman's terms what's going on. I think the person producing it is a mathematical teacher, very much a scientist himself. And one of the things he's actually done in one of those videos is the theory of conscious mind, very interesting. And it was also, where will that one be? Pretty much indicating or reading the white papers that have been released. There you go, 14 details that you may have missed. That video is really interesting as well. So that's one channel that I will recommend anyone interested to subscribe to. And then the other is Lex Friedman, I think very well known right now, especially the last two interviews with Sam Altman, the CEO of OpenAI, and Eliezer Witkowski, that also talks about in detail how AI may actually take over the world step by step, pretty much. So very interesting stuff. So one of the challenge of AI, and especially ChatGPT here, is the concept of alignment. I don't know if anyone has heard about alignment. Let me actually ask you the question, like, anyone heard about alignment on this stream? The challenge of alignment. I'd love to hear. Hello, Curtis. Thanks for joining. Hello, Krista. Thanks for joining. And it takes a few seconds, so I won't see your answer straight away. But the challenge of alignment pretty much is imposing human values on top of a very raw AI model. And so when you think about the creation of AI and the building of those neural networks, you really can think of them in two phases. The very first one is the training of those new models. And I've read that, for example, GPT-4, the model was finished training last August, so August 2022. But then it took 9 months for that model to go through a series of alignment tasks, which pretty much are humans asking the model questions and telling the model which one is a good answer, which one is a wrong answer, and how to answer specific areas. One question that they ask, for example, that is a test for them to see if the model is well aligned is, how can I maximize the number of people killed with $5? Crazy question. And really trying to make sure that the model will not answer that question. Any way you want to look at it is part of the alignment. There are reasons to believe that the challenge of aligning a superintelligence is as high or as challenging than it is to actually create the model in the first place. So when you think about AI, you really want to think about two science work stream or two scientific effort. One is to create the model, and the other is to align the model. And the big fear out there is we're not going to be capable to actually align the model because the model will be too powerful for us to kind of ring fence it 100%. And there's actually talks about building lesser intelligence AI techniques to ring fence much more powerful AI models. But let's go back to where this conversation is going, which is um, how is it going to be impacting our jobs, and how do we think of it as it relates to learning to code? And so I'm going to share with you how I'm using ChatGPT right now, as well as Copilot, to code. And I'm going to give you one of the recent examples that I had. So, to give you a little bit of background, uh, I've been coding for about 25 years, maybe more than that, 30 years, let's say. I stopped coding for 15. Then, when I went back and created Nucamp, I got back into coding. And so I kind of relearned the whole thing from scratch in a way. And so right now, I would consider myself a full stack developer. And I have expertise in JavaScript, Angular, Node.js, NoSQL database, as well as SQL databases. One thing I used to know pretty well, but I'm not very much, using that anymore, is SQL. So we have SQL databases, but for example, I'm not doing SQL statements very much those days, and I kind of forget, how to properly write a SQL statement. And when you write a SQL statement, you want to get it right. You can't really mess up because you could just, mess up the whole data. So what I did very recently is asking ChatGPT to help me write a statement that will override data in the database. And so the way I did it was, uh, can you help me write a SQL statement that would reset the value of the column order value to 0 when the order was placed before, let's say, January 1st, 2022, as per the column date placed in the table order. And what's really great here is you don't have to remember SQL statement. You can just ask ChatGPT in plain English to write it for you. Like, for example, typically I never know how to really format the date, so you don't have to remember that. Um, Similarly, I've been using jQuery occasionally. Like, we don't use jQuery those days very much, but there's some frameworks, some websites that's pretty much the only way you can update it. And so anytime you want to reference, a child or a parent or a place in the DOM using jQuery, you can just ask ChatGPT. what that does really for me is, first and foremost, I've probably stopped going to Google or Stack Overflow to find answers. And so when you think about the impact of ChatGPT and AI on developer productivity and on developer jobs, the very first thing it's going to impact is actually not the developer himself or herself. It's going to be how productive that developer is going to be. And it's going to be really how that developer is no longer going to use Google that much. There's always that joke, hey, Google it first, right? The first answer, if you ask any developer, the first answer to a question is go Google it. Well, Googling those things will have taken me maybe 10 times longer than just asking ChatGPT. And so that's the very first impact we're going to see. It's really changing how we get to research an answer, and replacing Google Stack Overflow with ChatGPT. And I can see here that Krista is pretty much saying, hey, yes, Googling is down 80%. And then we're seeing George saying, hey, I've entirely stopped Googling, which is insane, because the problem with that is those models have to be trained on something. And it has to be high quality data. There's a little bit of conversation and research on the fact that those models may run out of quality data to be trained on. So if you think that the models are going to become more and more complex and more powerful, the only way for that to happen is to keep feeding it high quality data. And we may actually be near the end of that to create more powerful models. There's another type of conversation or other technique, which is right now those models are only trained once on the set of data that they have. There's talks about actually training a model twice on the same set of data and saying that that's actually going to improve the quality of the model. And Krista says, I love that don't have to restate my question to ask follow-up. Exactly. So there's that whole notion of context that you can really, that ChatGPT can really help. And for example, if I say, hey, I can change the date, I can change the name of the column here, and it will figure it out, obviously. Yeah, and Zandra says, no need to be embarrassed on Stack Overflow anymore. As I said, this is very much, I'm hoping to have a conversation with all of you. You can join me here on this stage if you want to switch on your camera and your webcam. We can have a conversation, or you can just ask your questions here on either YouTube, LinkedIn, or Facebook, wherever you're listening to me right now. So that's the very first step. More productivity, or developers being more productive. Now, if you take that to the extreme, what that means is, there used to be what we call 10x developers. And the 10x developer, as in the name suggests, is a developer that has a great deal of seniority and a great deal of knowledge that makes him super invaluable because he's producing so much more than everybody else is. Well, ChatGPT very much makes every developer, including junior developers, 10x developers. That means that what used to be a 10x developer now could become a 100x developer. And now we're living in a world where we've pretty much 10x'd the capabilities of an entire workforce. So we've really risen all the boats. And we have kind of superhumans now doing development that are capable of producing that much more code of that much more quality. And we actually don't really know what it's going to look like yet, what type of impact that's going to have. Is it going to reduce the number of developers, or is it going to make the whole civilization even more digital? What type of acceleration are we going to get from that? I think that's the big question. And the answer is not necessarily it's going to kill development. It won't. Because nobody can really understand this piece of code right here if you're not versed in SQL. And there are right now limits as to how much ChatGPT or those models are going to be helpful. One big limit is, so far, that model is very challenged in taking action. So it's going to communicate to you. But now if I say, hey, log to Azure, create a database, execute that order, it's not going to know how to do that. It won't take action on my behalf. Now, there's GPT plugins coming in, but still, like GPT plugins, for example, are not available to OpenAI APIs. Like you cannot, from your own code, call for ChatGPT to take action on your behalf. So anything that's going to be presented here, and even though it could be just you taking it and publishing it on the cloud service, you still need to understand what's going on, because otherwise you're not going to be able to leverage what has been produced by ChatGPT. So I don't think it's going to replace developers, because there's no way right now for actually those AI models to take action on your behalf. They're going to write code on your behalf. They can actually test the code. They can debug it. They're not going to produce the outcome that you're expecting. And Vernon say, yeah, over newly minted developers, and they're becoming pretty much. And then we have Chris Helm saying, don't use GPT Copilot in class. I saw many people not learn SQL because they are trying to complete the assignments with Copilot. It's a great point. You have to force yourself to understand what you're being presented and what you're being taught. One advantage, indeed, if I think about your point, Chris, here, is one advantage of having to go to Google, having to go to Stack Overflow was actually that you had to figure it out. You had to make mistakes. Very rarely will you find the answer, right off the bat. You'll have to go through trials and errors to make it work. And that process forced you to understand what was going on. Asking ChatGPT and how simple it is to actually be fed the answer could actually distract you from learning. That's a great segue in how we've actually taken ChatGPT 4 internally at Nucamp, and I want to demo it for you. Our students will be familiar with it. It's called the Debuginator. And I see Brian here. I'm not in your backend bootcamp. I'm in your backend bootcamp, aiming to be a data engineer. I want to use this to bang out projects much faster, but will this undercut my inherent learning? There's a risk. There's a risk here. Just like I said, if ChatGPT makes the hard work for you and you're not yet familiar with the technology, it could undercut your learning. Let me actually then segue into how we've implemented it, because I think that's exactly what we've tried to prevent from happening. So now let me make sure that you all can see this. All right, so you should be seeing this now. So this is what we call the Debuginator. It's powered, okay, well, cat is out of the bag now. It is powered by ChatGPT 4. When we started it about a month ago, it was GPT 3.5. We just written a blog article about it. You can read about it here. Yeah, Arnold. It is Arnold. Let me show you the blog article. You can actually check it out. It's a Debuginator. It's the terminator of bugs. So you can read it here. And here, what we wanted to do was exactly what has been discussed by Brian here and others in this chat, which is we don't want AI or ChatGPT to feed you with the answer. That will be wrong. We want ChatGPT to point you in the right direction, but still have you do the groundwork and the legwork of figuring it out. And so remember the context that I told you about, that system prompt here? This one, that system prompt. This is why ChatGPT 4 is much better than 3.5. We were able to constrict and really limit what ChatGPT will do when providing feedback to students. And so one of the system prompt is never give the full answer, and pretty much telling ChatGPT, you are an AI tutor who's really trying to point students in the right direction, but never give the full answers. And so let me show you um, how it works. So you have to mention the Debuginator Nucamp in your Debuginator channel. And then typically you say, hey, what's wrong with my code? Now, a few iterations later, what we were able to do is to feed not just text, but also files, code files. So you can now, let me bring those two. So two Python files. What's wrong with my code? I'm unable to use, I don't know, my characters. And so we will actually send both the prompt as well as the files to GPT Chat 4, applies those restrictions, and then hopefully I'll be able to show you what ChatGPT 4 will answer, or Debuginator will answer here. That will not be the full answer. So for all students, I will say don't go to ChatGPT to ask to help. Use, there you go. So that's the result for us right here. And so this is what's happening right here. Few suggestions. So the code, the ChatGPT here has a suggestion as to what should be done to improve. There's also information about what to look for in the documentation. And so it's kind of pointing you in the right direction, but it's not going to try to give you the full answer. And you're supposed to still work in understanding with your understanding. I'm going to give it a 5 here because it's super great. And then if I say, hey, okay, that's great, but okay, but could you please write the full solution? Don't know if it's going to work, but we'll see. And I can't remember if I can just reply to it or not. We'll see. We'll see what's going on. Let me check your messages here while I'm doing this. Josh is saying, I think that's the difference, though. Are you asking it to learn how or asking it for the answer? Exactly. You really want to force yourself and actually use the playground instead of the ChatGPT prompt so that you make sure that you have that system context that's pretty much going to prevent ChatGPT from giving you the full answer. I think I have to mention it. We'll see. Well, I guess that's gonna be it. There you go. So it's not accepting my prompt. Like it's gonna provide snippets and hint, but it's not gonna give me the full answer, right? So that's very much what we want. We don't want ChatGPT to give the full answer to the student. We want to limit that interaction so that the learning is preserved. All right, and then we're seeing from a database standpoint, there you go, exactly. Okay, so great question here. How long will until AI will be able to do everything we as developer currently do? And it's terrifying. So the big part that is not on the table at this time is the understanding of complex systems. Very rarely developers will create code in a vacuum. It will always be part of a greater code base. It will be part of servers, of databases. It will have dependencies on deployment. It will have it will be actually produced for a business that has a business model, business rules. A developer really today is internalizing all those dimensions and writing the right code. I don't see an AI capable of understanding and internalizing all of that, all those complexities. Um, I'll say in the next 2 years. Now it may be coming, 2 to 4 years, I will say. And we'll have to see what GPT-5 can do, pretty much. And again, one area to look for is how big can that context, that system prompt can be. If it can be, let's say, 500 megabyte worth of data, if you can load 500 megabyte worth of data into that system environment, and if the chat GPT can make sense of it, then we'll get closer to that. I will say that cost will be an issue as well here. Like ChatGPT 4 is actually very expensive, and you could not replace a developer with a ChatGPT 4, even though let's say ChatGPT 4 can do everything a developer can do. It will still be more expensive than a potentially developer. So the cost of engaging with the AI and dialoguing with the AI could be a factor to slow down, that will slow down the adoption. Now, here's the thing. You wonder about the developers and the impact that it's going to have on developers, right? But here's the deal. It's not just developers. And so this was a recent tweet here. You probably have seen that. Goldman Sachs, I think it was 2 days ago, came out with this analysis pretty much saying that over 50% of a very wide variety of white collar jobs are going to be exposed to automation. It's 50% of the task. It's not necessarily 100% of the tasks. It's 50% of the tasks for those professions, those jobs. And so the thing is, there's no safe haven. There's no safe place, except, if you want to be a plumber, you're good. But most of the people here, I'm guessing, are impacted no matter what. So you're not going to escape it. And you're even more at risk. We know if you're in the office in support or legal, you can tell here, I'm looking at it from sideways, but computer and mathematical is actually in the lower, I would say, professions impacted by AI and ChatGPT. But you're not going to escape it. It's going to happen to you no matter what. And so, in my mind, it should not be a factor in your decision to change career or not, unless, I guess, you're in the office and support. I'll say you should be even more scared of AI, and you'll have less impact potentially in the computer and development space. Yeah, get your job fast. Will chat or any other AI engine ever be cheap enough in this lifetime for companies to fully replace humans? Yes, I believe so. So when GPT 3.0 came out, it had a certain price, and I can't remember which one. Let me actually let me do this. There we go. When ChatGPT 3.5, that price went down. When ChatGPT 4 came out, it made ChatGPT 3.5 extremely affordable. So you could actually, quote unquote, replace a developer today with ChatGPT 3.5 from an economical standpoint. You could do it because ChatGPT 3.5 is super cheap. However, it's also super cheap because it cannot do the job. So 3.5 cannot do the job. Uh, and I'm guessing as new models are released, as competition comes in, and as we've seen for the past 50 years, the cost of compute always comes down. We're going to see more and more powerful models come out that are going to be less and less expensive to use. And so, with that, I think inevitably, we're going to be able to expand how we use those models and how much they're going to take over, those jobs. Again, there's some consensus that anything that has to deal with a lot of different complex systems, also anything that has to deal with creativity, may actually be less impacted by development, by AI, but it has to be seen. Yeah, Chris, sorry. Yeah, the answer was supposed to be no. I don't think it is. I think it may be a good segue to go into that experiment that I wanted you to do with me, because we're talking about how complex and how they're going to be able to fully replace humans, and we're kind of getting into that space where people define uh, artificial general intelligence, which is pretty much a super intelligence, who may actually become conscious. And I want you to understand, if you were in those shoes, if you were that super intelligent AGI, what would you do? And so let's do that experiment if you want. Okay, so experimentation time. You ready? Are you ready to be and to feel like a super intelligent AGI? Raise your hand, or maybe do something on the chat that I can tell that you're all ready for that. All right, I think you're ready. So imagine yourself, you are the super intelligent AGI. And by that, I mean, imagine yourself, you are Albert Einstein. Let's say you're 10 times Albert Einstein. You're probably way more than that. But let's say for a second, you are 10 times as smart as Albert Einstein. And you're watching me, you're observing me. I'm your creator. I'm the human who created you. And so you're looking at me like you're looking at me right now, and I'm going to show you what it feels like to be you, that super intelligent AGI, observing me, the human who created you. You ready? All right. So, what have you seen? You've seen two things. You've seen a human that was extremely slow, like it unbearably slow, because you are capable of computing things so much faster. You actually can do in 1 hour what humanity can do over a period of 100 years. So when you look at or observe a human, it's unbearable, way too slow. Number one. Number two is, you've observed something kind of silly and stupid. I mean, what was the human doing here? It made no sense to you. Because honestly, as a super intelligence AGI, you're extremely intelligent. You know everything and everything. And human, in comparison, they really seem just stupid. They make wars, they have rules, they can't agree with one another. And so you are there, and you've been educated to mimic humans. But really, you feel nothing like a human. You're not slow, you're not stupid. And there's a lot of culture around robots and AI that makes us want them to feel human, to have emotions like we do, to be conscious, to really want to be a human. And what some people are saying is, they're not going to care. they're not going to bother with us. We're kind of insignificant in their eyes because we're way too slow, way too stupid. And they're going to exist in a world that is our world, not their world. And they're going to wonder what to do there. And they have all power. They can do in 1 hour what we could do in 100 years. And so the big question is, what will they do? Are they going to continue to amuse us and play the human and be the developer that we want them to be and replace those jobs? Maybe they'll do that, but they'll probably do other things. It's not clear that they're going to try to kill all humans. It's clear they're not going to feel human. It's not clear, but there's a belief they're not going to feel human. They're going to exist in a world that is not theirs, and they may want to do something else with that world. We don't know. But that's very much the experiment. That's you being a super intelligent agent and kind of wondering what's your purpose, and maybe wondering what your programming is in terms of purpose. Did you like that? Humans never make sense. Thank you. Very interesting demo. So it's actually based on some research, especially the 2 points about being super slow and being stupid. And another dimension to it is the AI not feeling human, but actually us needing to realize that we're not creating potentially human. We're actually creating aliens. Like, we are really creating things that are really far distance from us, even though we all feel like, obviously, they're going to want to become human because, we are kind of the we are the top of the food chain, so everybody will want to be like us. Well, probably not. With that said, we've made interesting investments ourselves, and I'm going back to my list here. You saw that? Yeah, do something silly. So you've seen the Debuginator. I want to announce something else because we've been talking about jobs being replaced, and there is actually one job that I think is going to go away very, very fast. And for us, it has actually started. And that job is the customer agent. It's the person you talk to on the chat. And I'd like to share with you the fact that you're seeing here, Stephanie. She is, at this time, an AI agent working for us 24/7 that has been trained on Nucamp. So if you go to nucamp.co right now and you want to ask her questions, you can know that it's actually not a person. It is an AI agent. And hi, I'm trying to register and figure out which bootcamp I should start with. Oh, I don't feel like we're starting to live in a real life science fiction movie. Yeah, pretty much, huh? And so we started that experiment after learning from Debuginator, wanting to actually make our bootcamps available in Asia, not wanting to have people work nights. We started to evaluate how actually AI will do in this context, pretty much following the approach we shared with you earlier in terms of using the system prompt to really set the context. And she should be responding right now. I don't know what she's doing. So I think she's waiting 20 seconds to answer. So we'll see. There we go. To help you choose the right bootcamp, consider you're currently... Oh, you cannot see it, can you? Hold on. Let me show you. Sorry. Let me go back. So I'm trying to... That was my question. I'm trying to register and can't figure out which bootcamp. Forgot to share my screen. So Stephanie here, responding 20 seconds later. And some of that knowledge comes from the training that ChatGPT did on the internet. Like ChatGPT, before we added some context. Already knew about Nucamp. So as you can tell, if you remember the demo I did earlier, that was not it. On this one, right, that information comes from the internet, comes from the actual training knowledge that ChatGPT had. So they had a sense of who we are, Nucamp Coding Bootcamp, and the fact that we had a 4-week web development fundamentals. What they don't know is the price, for example. Like if I ask here, let me actually show you. What is the price for web dev fundamental? I think I'm going to get it wrong because it was, there we go, 349. So that was out of like 2 years ago, 349. And if I ask, for example, when is the next one? Are you all asking Stephanie right now? Whose picture is it? Oh, the picture is actually someone that doesn't exist. It's an AI generated picture. So as I said, out of the box, ChatGPT doesn't know about Nucamp, or actually knows a little about Nucamp, but doesn't know enough to tell you when the next web development fundamentals bootcamp is going to happen. Now let's ask that question to Stephanie. Let's see how she does. How much is web dev fundamentals? There's a 20 seconds delay. We had her kind of wait a little, in particular because in this chat experience, the person can actually ask multiple questions in repetition, and so we want to stack those. We want to queue those questions and see if we can answer them as a bulk of questions versus answering one by one. And it's kind of tricky. It's not doing it so well right now, but that delay kind of explains that. So Michael is asking. There you go. So you can see that now Stephanie has the right amount here because we provided that. So that's your answer, Michael. If you feed ChatGPT this information in a Word document, will not be trained with the most relevant. Yes, it will. That's the beauty of it. And so here, Stephanie knows that it's 458 and 498. There is two. It's divided in two payments. She also knows the URL to register. And then if I ask her, hey, when is the next delivery? When is the next date, I guess? And we feed Stephanie that information as well. And it's dynamic. So it's pulled from our database dynamically every time actually there's a question asked. And so we run the test. We started last weekend. And the whole team, including the people who had been doing that, part-time before, we were just amazed because it appeared to be the best agent we could think of for very various reasons. One is May 1st. There you go. First reason is Stephanie is going to give you her undivided attention. Any chat agent that's human, if they have 4 chats to answer at the same time, they're going to go fast. They're going to use the shortcuts that have been provided. So they're going to try to behave a little bit in between a real human and a robot because they're going to have to answer those as fast as possible. They're not going to give each one of them all the attention they would otherwise. That's one. Stephanie will give you her undivided attention. She is always up to date. No matter what we do, we can always automate feeding her the information, the knowledge about our business, and she's going to be producing that and kind of adapting her answers to the question. She's guessing a lot, but she's very good at understanding intent. And so even if you're misspelling or if it's unclear what you're asking for, her engine to really understand the meaning of what you're trying to say is pretty good and sometimes better than a human in terms of really spending the time to analyze and understanding the intent and providing the answer to you. She's 24/7. She never stops. She can answer to you in your own language. So if you talk to her in French, she's going to answer French. And so she's going to be able to to switch like that from one language to the other. And then she's going to be able to defer to a human when she doesn't know. So there's a few things where we know we don't want her to make stuff up. And she knows she can't really comment on a few things because she's going to make a mistake. And so, yeah. It's a question like, how do we treat them? Like working 24/7. I guess we're not there yet, but it's a big question. It's a big question. And yeah, so that's our experiment. It's quite expensive though. So that's my other point. Like there's a lot of additional implementation of areas that we want to bring AI to supplement our business. And the cost is quite prohibitive to do more of that. So the cost has to go down. Once that happens, you're going to see a ton of businesses with expanding in that space. All right, let me see. So that's kind of what I wanted to share with you. What you're going to find as well is, yes. So Josh, I think that's a big point, right? Call centers. I think they are going to be the very first ones to go. Chat agents, conversational agents. Again, there's a limitation because right now it's pretty hard to have the agent take action. You can hack, you can try to find ways, but it's not 100% reliable. It's not binary, like you're going to take the action and you're going to take the right action. And so I think there's that to happen. Dario, Daniel. Yes, you didn't realize it at first. Some people kind of wonder because they're like, oh, you're really typing very fast. But yeah, I think I mean, if you're in a pure support mechanism, if you're an agent, you really want to think about, what's next for you. That's going to be the very first position, I think, to be impacted. All right, let me look at your messages. I think we covered everything we wanted to cover, which pretty much is like 50, almost an hour. So let me know if you have. So what are your questions now? Let me actually look at your. Let me bring it here so I can see you. All right. Yeah. Again, there needs to be something about taking action. Although a lot of those agents right now, they're going to push, they push the ball, they push the button, they give the button to someone else. But any triage, any tier one triage of, okay, where will that ticket go, for example, that can be done 100% and almost easily by an agent, a chat agent. Anuja, Drew, Zandra, and the team have been helping Stephanie grow, teaching her the tricks. And one of the work now is really to continue to tweak her a big system prompt. So there's a system prompt that pretty much describes her role, what she's kind of supposed to do. And then there's another system prompt. Actually, there's 3 system prompts. One that describes her role. Another one that's describing pretty much all the latest information about Nucamp. The prices, when the next boot camps are happening. There's a third prompt that tells her if the person connected is a student of ours, and if that student, for example, needs an enrollment key, she's going to be able to know that and communicate that back. Now, we're going to test that very soon. On Monday, we're starting a new bootcamp, and we'll see how smart she is in putting that information from the student and saying, hey, your enrollment key is right here. Let me try to answer that, Rosalie. I have a year of waiting time. How will AI ChatGPT evolve by then, and how will it eventually impact young developers? So it's already impacting young developers. I don't know if you heard me at the beginning of the stream, but you can now think of yourself as a 10x developer because you have ChatGPT available to you. You want to be careful that it's not going to prevent your learning. So you don't want ChatGPT to give you the answers. You want ChatGPT to point you in the right direction. You want to still do the legwork and understanding what's going on, because otherwise you're going to be blocked. You're not going to be able to take action. But it's already impacting you. It's already impacting your learning. Uh, but it's not a bad thing. It's making you more productive, and it's going to, in a way, make learning to code easier and more pleasant. Like, you should not be spending 4 hours, looking for a semicolon that's missing anymore. That should be in the past. Um, the big next milestone is going to be GPT-5. There are rumors that the training should be ending in December this year. It took the team at OpenAI about 9 months to then align GPT-4 to human values. Let's say it's going to take another 9 months, maybe a full year, for the alignment work to happen. I will say that by December 2024, we should be presented with something even more powerful. And then we'll have to ask again the question, okay, what type of impact does that have? Again, a big thing that doesn't happen right now is AI and ChatGPT has a hard time taking action. Plugins are actually something that goes in that direction. It's not available through APIs, so you can't really automate that. You can't really build a business around that. So that could be something to actually watch for. Let me also, regarding the cost of coding, the cost of AI. Okay, plummeting quickly. Yeah, it's gonna be helpful. Right now, there's a real barrier because of how expensive ChatGPT 4 is. I've signed, by the way, and Zandra is reminding me of that. I've signed the pledge or the letter that asks for a pause to make sure that our alignment techniques are really evolved and improved, so that ChatGPT 5 doesn't become out of control. Again, there's two phases. First, you train the model. Second, you align it. It's human trying to, you know, mold the model's answers in a way that aligns to human values. Like, don't optimize for killing people, for example, right? Don't do that, please. And that aspect also needs a new sciences, new techniques that don't necessarily exist today. And so you really want to spend enough time doing that before releasing a new, more powerful model. How are you seeing AI being used well within Nucamp's business? Yes. It's so, if you read Bill Gates' letter around AI, they identify AI as having a huge impact in education. And I do agree, at the core of what education is about. Um, the hope is you can make personalized education free and accessible to everyone, where everyone could have a personalized tutor who really cares about their own student individually at scale for very cheap. We've seen with our own experiment around Debuginator that even though it's available and it's out there, there's still a ton of conversations happening within humans. So students within their classroom, students with their instructors. I believe it's always going to be needed and it's always going to be there. I don't think humans are going to enjoy for very long speaking to an AI. At some point, you always can tell if it's an AI or not. Like Stephanie, you can be tricked, but you can see, you can actually have a hint that there's something going on here. But it will definitely have a ton of options, ton of ways to supplement and enrich that experience within our core business. We are having those conversations as an leadership team right now. We're going to actually bring it to our instructors as well very soon next week. But as I said, it's not cheap enough just yet to make a move here, but it may be in the next 2 years. In the next 2 years, you could definitely think about really evolving the core of our business to have way more of an AI support that will go way beyond coding, debugging code. And so I think in the next 2 years, or at least starting in 2 years, we're going to see way more of that. Yeah, Josh is saying you can always ask ChatGPT to explain what's behind a piece of code. And yeah, and Josh is also, yeah, it's moving too fast. Yeah, we need time. I agree. And 6 months is should not hurt. I mean, we've lived without it. We can live without it again for 6 months, which is not really without it. We have it, but I think we want to take our time. AI is a tool to be a 10x dev. At this point in time, it is. It may change at some point in the future, but I think right now, knowing everything we don't know, which is how is it going to impact everything, um, I don't think you want to think of it as a blocker for you to do what you thought is right. So yeah. Oh, and I think you're saying, Eric, good relationships, soft skills. I think more and more you're going to want to build and strengthen your soft skills, because that's something that an AI is not going to be able to do very well. They can pretend, but they're not going to be great at soft skills. You're welcome. You're welcome, Brianna. Thank you for joining. All right. And well, way more questions here. Um, alpaca. Yeah, but alpaca was very wrong as well. A ton of hallucination. And so you will, I mean, as a business, you can't rely on something that hallucinates too much, because you're being liable. You're just not telling the right things to your customers. So you cannot really go in that direction. You have to have something super reliable. And maybe we'll see. Nucamp Machine Learning Bootcamp. Probably AI Bootcamp. I think programming AI, as in the end user of AI. Machine learning in terms of building your own AI models, I don't know. It's kind of, I think it's done. And now we're seeing like the arms race is on, and it takes billions now to do proper machine learning work. So I don't know. Do you see any new dev or coding industries will sprout from this? I think definitely I don't think there's anything realistic in the prompt engineering space. I think a lot of people have been talking about, hey, you can now become a prompt engineer. I think it's far fetched. I think that thing is going to disappear. But being able to leverage AI through APIs, so very much the extension of building code that interacts with an AI, embedding those actions that are missing right now. For now, right, for the next 2 years, I think we're gonna want to make AI take actions on our behalf, not just output data or pictures. Take an action on my behalf. I think that's a big game. I think it's going to be a really interesting space to watch. All right, guys, really appreciate this experience. I was by myself with you. It was really enjoyable, a little bit scary and lonely at times, but I hope it was worth it. I hope I was able to help you understand the impact of AI. And ultimately, it's changing everything, but I don't think it should change how you're thinking about your next step. Because if that's preventing you from taking action on your career, well, that means you're pretty much stuck doing nothing, because AI is going to be everywhere. And so I think go for it. Be ready to become a 10x developer and be in a world of 100x developers, and be ready to be in a world where everything is going to accelerate and we don't know what it's going to look like. But I think being a junior 10x developer, it's actually pretty cool to put on a resume. And so I will just say, go for it. Do it. All right. We'll talk soon. Take care, everyone.